My friend.
Hey guys, I am Pixel Dan, and this is the Masters of the Universe Origins Eternia Playset. That's right, Eternia is here! I can't believe that this is a thing that exists, and I know that we've known about it for a while. We ordered this thing back in 2022 at this point, at the end of the year, that year. This was Mattel's first real crowdfund playset. And at $650, it met its goal, and Eternia was promised to everybody who pre-ordered it. So like I said, we pre-ordered this way back at the end of 2022, and here we are now in February of 2024, and our playset has arrived, and we are gonna break it down and take a look at it here today. And what better place to start than, of course, with the box. Now, as you can see behind me, it's already here, it's already set up, it's already built, but I decided to take some time streaming my unboxing and building of this playset over on my Patreon. And I'm gonna incorporate some of the clips from that unboxing so you guys can get a general idea of what it's like to put this playset together. All right, so the box is massive. It's 39 inches across. Let's see, it's about nearly 30 inches tall. And then our depth on here is about 12 inches. And it's like almost 47 pounds. So it is a huge box and it is a bit awkward. And of course, this is going to be one of those things where, like, if you are an in-box collector, I mean, this is a huge box, so I don't know where you're going to keep that. But I think the other thing that is definitely worth talking about with this is the packaging itself when it comes to the way it was shipped. There's been a lot of chatter about this online, and I'm sure some of you guys have dealt with it yourself or saw some of it, where these were coming up pretty banged up. So if you haven't actually seen what the mailer box looks like, I did get some shots of that to incorporate in. And the way this shipped is this was just basically inside of a normal single wall cardboard box, the same kind of box you would see these playsets go into the stores with, like, because it's got the information for the playset and everything on the outside. When you open the top flap, there are some corner protectors in there, which I do think is really nice. Like, they put these really stiff cardboard pieces wrapping around the corners and all the way down the sides. But the problem is that the cardboard box itself is still just a single, like, ply piece of cardboard that it's shipped in, meaning even if those corners are protected, if the box itself is getting banged around, it's still going to cause problems, which you can see up here on mine, where I've got a huge dent up here in the corner of my box with this large crease that's going down. I definitely could have had it worse. I've seen photos of people's boxes that have been completely mangled by this. And this is an issue because this is such an expensive toy. I'm going to open this, right? So at the end of the day, I'm just going to open it and the box will probably get broken down anyway. But that's just because that's what I'm doing with it. Doesn't mean that I think it's fair that these are showing up this way. And the best way I can really kind of compare this to is how some of these other companies have been handling their more expensive crowdfund type items that they've been shipping out. It wasn't that too long ago that I took a look at Super 7's Party Wagon, Ninja Turtles Party Wagon. And that thing was inside of a shipper box with corner protectors, and then that shipping box was closed, and then there were more corner protectors on that shipping box, and it was placed inside a second box. I mean, it was like a fortress around that toy, so that the actual box probably couldn't get damaged unless the delivery driver was trying to damage it. Like, they really went out of their way to make sure that was as secure as they possibly could. Like, obviously things are going to happen in shipping, but considering this was like a $600 toy, I really do feel like Mattel should have done a little bit extra to try to protect these. especially since a lot of people paid $600 for this and maybe they do want to keep the box in good shape. Maybe they are in-box collectors. And just because I'm not doesn't mean I can judge somebody else for wanting to collect their stuff that way. And the reality is that it's probably impossible to get a replacement because these were like made to order as part of a crowdfund thing. So maybe there aren't even any replacements. So that's just something I definitely wanted to point out. And I definitely think Mattel should have done a little bit better to pack these with care. All right, let's talk about this absolutely gorgeous box art here, because this is one of the things that really shines on this packaging and exactly why you would want to keep this box in such good shape. This line has been filled with amazing box art, which is so true to the brand. Like Masters of the Universe has always been known for having this amazing artwork that really sparks your imagination and makes things exciting for you. And you can see all of that done right here in this gorgeous artwork featuring Eternia. But I love looking at all of the characters doing battle all over this thing. Like, first of all, front and center, we've got laser power He-Man and laser light Skeletor, which is so incredibly cool to see. Also really ties in with the nature of the end of the original Masters of the Universe toy line, right? Because these were 87 figures right there at the end of the line with the Eternia playset. Off to the side, we've got Hero, which is great to see as well. You can also see Moaty the Moat monster peeking in down there. We've got some original characters as well. I love these really interesting red and black horde troopers with the capes back there. Very cool. But you can see we've also got Stondar and Rockon. You can see Rio Blast hanging onto the monorail. You can see Extendar at the top. Fisto is driving the Bashosaurus with Castle Grayskull in the background. Stinkor is here. Over on the other side, we've got Lady Slither with some snakes. You can see King Hiss back there. We can see Hordak riding Mantisaur. We can see Modulok and Multibot combined together, which is amazing. Twistoid is up there. Blast Attack running from Snake Mountain. Cyclone is up here in the air. Grizzlor is climbing the tower. We're up at the top. We've got King Grayskull and Shirella, another character that would have been part of the Powers of Grayskull toy line. The artwork is gorgeous. It's bright. It's vibrant. The character selection is exciting. It definitely has us wondering if these are characters we're going to be seeing in the line going forward. I love it. I absolutely love it. The top of the box also has full color images of the actual playset itself and gives you some call outs of some of the action features. This is great because this is another thing that feels very vintage. It looks like something we would see on the original packaging from the original toy line. And it also kind of shows you all the different things that this playset can do, which is awesome. Like, look, there's the hands that grab the figures and draw them into the jaw of the central tower. There's our monorail with our little prison that drops figures out of the bottom of it, and the little gun turret that you can have rolling around the monorail. Lots of fun stuff that I bet a lot of people didn't even know were part of the original playset as well, because so many of us didn't have this growing up. And then the back of the box is done in black and white, which is another amazing nod to the vintage Masters of the Universe toy line, because many of the boxes were very similar to this. And I love this because it's clearly an image of toys, right? And they are doing battle and they are in some action poses there, but it looks like toys. It looks like something you would set up. And it is so incredibly fun and exciting. Look, there's a Keklar there, the figure that didn't even come out with this. That's going to be our only appearance of this guy, maybe. I guess time will tell. But this is the full box, but now we got to open this thing up. One thing I think is really interesting is the way that this opens, because it's actually not taped shut, which kind of makes me wonder how some of the mint and box collectors feel, because this is not taped down. This lid pulls straight up with the front of the box, basically. You can lift it up and it reveals everything on the inside here. So I'm curious, like, if you're a mint in box collector, like, is that something that bothers you, that this isn't taped closed? It comes with a print, a poster print of the beautiful box art. And it's also like this holofoil print. This is gorgeous. I am so happy that they included this. because artwork like this definitely needs to like be admired, like not just on the box. I think that is awesome. Instruction booklet. Two sheets of stickers. Uh, 2 sheets of stickers. Why we got so many stickers? So this is actually pretty cool the way they've got this in here. They've got individual boxes for the different towers. And the way they labeled them is they actually have original artwork on the boxes of each of the towers and the monorail. That is very cool. This, look at this. They actually have credits. This is so cool and so important to see the names of all the people behind these toys that we love so much. I think that's awesome. Boom. Boom. That turned out pretty good. All right. What's next? Stickers up on the top of this thing too. So the chair had 1 billion stickers, and then I also had to put 4 stickers up on the top. Okay. Clips on like that. So let me just show you guys this real quick. So this is, the tracks are labeled on the underside, A or B. There's an A on these, so it shows you where they need to go together. These feel nice and sturdy compared to the vintage ones, of course. And the way these clip together, just kind of slide it in there, give it a nice snap. Look at that. It works really well. Plug into this like that. This should plug into that like that. There we go. So it's got these little notches right here, and they just clip right into these. It actually works really well. So this will come up here, clip that together, and attach that. That attaches there. That attaches there. Oh my God, guys, look at this. Look at it go. Look at it. I am so happy right now. Oh, look at this. So the entire building process took me about 2 hours to complete. And granted, I was talking since I was doing a live stream, but there's a lot going on here. 2 giant sheets of stickers, which were fine, but still annoying to put on. And honestly, man, I paid $650 for this. Couldn't you guys just put those stickers on for me? Putting all of those stickers on, I think the most annoying part for me were the screws, because you do actually have to get a screwdriver, use some included Phillips head screws, and there are parts of the central tower that you have to fasten together, and it is a bit tough kind of maneuvering around into some of those areas just to tighten those screws. But all of those are pretty minor because the build is pretty easy, all said. It didn't take me too much work to actually clip everything together, and everything that was supposed to snap fit did so well and is holding up just fine once the playset is built. That is to say that everything feels sturdy. It feels solid. It feels like a very well-made playset. And if any of you have ever had the original Eternia playset from the 80s Masters of the Universe line, you know that that playset is pretty well known for having some brittle parts that break pretty easy. So that is definitely something that Mattel really had to make sure that they got right this time. We didn't want broken monorail tracks or weapons that were easily fractured. And I will say, just right out the gate, it already feels like a very sturdy piece. So here's the included mini comic Battlefield Eternia. Definitely looks like we're kind of linking in some of the concepts from the Revolution Netflix series, because there's Skelegod. And of course, we've already got this version of King Grayskull, who was a bonus figure with this particular set. But you can see, look at that snake. The Snake Men are in here with King Hiss. King Grayskull's fighting the Snake Men. So pretty cool stuff. Love the colors in this little mini comic here. Oh, what's this? We've also got some characters on the back. Oh, look at the Moat monster. That is great. And Osira. Pretty cool stuff. Look, she's got the central tower head, the cat head on there, wearing a similar outfit to Tila. Huh. Definitely designed to be an action figure. Pretty fun stuff. Look, the Moat monster's in the comic. Best comic ever. So, the Moat monster comes in his own box, which is not something I was expecting to see, and I love this. So, the Moat monster, or as the fans have lovingly dubbed him, Moaty, was always meant to be the included bonus figure with Eternia. But I don't think any of us knew that he was going to come with a fully detailed box with some amazing artwork. I mean, come on, look at that face. I love it so much. The back of the box has also got some gorgeous artwork of him. I love that he's basically become this goofy mascot character at this point. That's so funny. There he is again, peeking out of the bog or the moat of Eternia. And looking at the top is even cooler because this artwork right here, this top-down look of him sort of submerged in the water, is meant to look like he appeared as part of the sculpt of the vintage Eternia Moat. That is awesome. Window box, of course, showing our figure within. This is great. I can imagine a lot of people will just want to keep this boxed. We're going to open it up, though, to take a look at him. So when you slide him out of the box, he's just in this little blister shell here, but he does have one little tie in there that we are gonna have to cut. Though the cool thing about this is, like, if you do want to open him and play with him, but then decide he will work better displayed inside this box with the awesome artwork, you could totally do that. Oh, he's got some ties on his feet here as well, but you'd still be able to put him right back in this, slide him here, slide him back in the box. So that's pretty cool. Here he is. Here's little Moaty outside of his box. Fully articulated figure too, which is pretty dang amazing. You see the paint deco on here is even a bit reminiscent of Eternia, where it sort of has like this airbrushed blue along his back. His body is like a bluish gray. He's got those big red eyes, those teeth sticking out of the bottom of his mouth. Look at that. We have an articulated jaw. And then the legs, you can see they can go outwards, forwards, and backwards, though there's no bends in the elbow or the ankles or anything, so there's really only one way to make him standing. The back legs go forwards and backwards. He's got an articulation joint in the middle of his body, and his tail can twist. This is a super cool little figure, and I'm really glad that he came packaged with Eternia. I always love seeing some of those great details from the vintage line being brought to life as actual toys. You know, thinking about things like the armor from Castle Grayskull comes to mind. This is pretty awesome. I love this guy. All right, guys, it's comparison time. This is vintage Moaty the Moat Monster, who was just sculpted into the moat on the original Eternia playset. And here he is, brought to life as a real action figure. Boy, you've got quite the little story there. What a glow up we've got going on here. All right, so you can obviously see that this is a massive playset because I'm standing in front of my table here, and I had to take over my family room space just so I can fit this entire thing on camera. In fact, it's going to be interesting when I'm trying to do some comparisons later on in the video. But let's go ahead and take some measurements with this now. Central Tower is obviously the biggest part of this entire playset. From the base all the way to the top of the tower itself, we're looking at 31 inches. But if we go all the way up to the top of the flags, you're gonna push about 38 inches just on the central tower alone. Viper Tower over here is right at 24 inches. Grayskull Tower is sitting at 22 inches. The depth of this playset is about 29. I would probably say give it 30 inches if you're looking for a space to put this and you need depth. 30 inches deep. And then all the way across from tower to tower, I would say about 44 inches, maybe 45 inches. It's big. It's a very, very large playset. In fact, I think one of the early comparisons we can do in this line is to take a look at it with the Masters of the Universe Origins Castle Grayskull and Snake Mountain playsets. We can put those up here on the table so you can see what this looks like with all of those. Now, I've got a 6-foot table here that I'm demoing these on, and it's really almost not big enough to properly display Castle Grayskull and Snake Mountain alongside Eternia. So again, if you're looking for a place to display this, you're gonna need probably 6 feet or more if you want the castles at the sides of Eternia. But you can see it looks really nice all together. Snake Mountain even stands about the same height or a little bit taller than Viper Tower over there. Snake Mountain is really tall on its own, but it looks really good with those two castles. And if you want to talk about action figure scale, obviously this is part of the Masters of the Universe Origins toy line, which means it's technically scaled for your 5.5-inch action figures. That would be Origins and, of course, vintage Masters of the Universe. But this is such a big playset that I think it scales well. You could probably fudge it with some of those other figures. So just to give you guys an idea, I've not only got Masters of the Universe Origins He-Man displayed down here, but I also threw in the Cartoon Collection He-Man since he's at 6 inches tall, and I threw in both Masterverse and Masters of the Universe Classics, since those figures are usually ranging between 7 and 8 inches tall. And all of these look pretty good with Eternia, so if you want to display this with any of your MOTU figures, I think it would display just fine with those. Alright, so let's go ahead and start talking about the details and the fun action features with Eternia here. We've got a lot to cover, so we'll go ahead and start with just what we see from the front of the playset, and we'll start here with Viper Tower, and we'll work our way downwards. So, Viper Tower, very cool look, very reminiscent of the way it looked in the vintage Eternia playset. We've got this serpent head sticking out of the top with this gold collar, and it looks as though the serpent is wrapped around this mountain structure underneath. The mountain is basically just molded in like a brown, but you can see there's a bit of a airbrushing effect going on there, not unlike what we've seen with Castle Grayskull and some of the other MOTU-like playsets. You'll also notice that there are some cool little details sculpted into the mountain's mold here. There's weapons stuck into the rocks, as well as this little snake feature that is carved into the rocks on the front. We've got these gold pieces right here, which are the braces to hold the monorail track in place. And then the monorail itself is done in this bright blue plastic. And we will talk more about the monorail a little later on in the video. But I do want to say that with this being the gold plastic, and of course, with the vintage monorail tracks being notoriously brittle, I just want to say right out the gate that these feel very nice and very sturdy. The plastic doesn't feel too brittle or too hard. It's actually got some give to it, but it feels strong enough that it's going to continue to hold this up without any problems. The gold plastic feels good, as well as this bright blue plastic that they used for the tracks themselves. One thing I really like is the real metal chains that they've got coming off of the collar of the Viper Tower here. This is another throwback to the vintage Eternia playset, with those metal chains actually being some of the harder pieces to get a hold of now for that vintage playset. So I love to see that continued on this playset here with real metal chains. It just looks very cool and really makes it stand out. There's a hole on the back of Viper Tower that essentially works as like a little cave that you could fit a figure inside of. But it's also worth noting there's also this blue lever that is hanging down that controls the serpent's head on the top of the tower. By twisting, it spins the head all the way around in a full 360 degrees, and a new feature, if you pull on that lever, it actually causes that serpent head to strike forward. It actually lunges forward, the mouth opens up. It's a really cool effect. Now, I don't exactly know what he's attacking from up here. Perhaps this is for flying characters like Buzz Off or flying vehicles. He kind of looks like he could be attacking the monorail. He doesn't quite get close to it, but still, it's a really fun and really satisfying action feature. We've essentially got ourselves a little snake puppet here over in Viper Tower. It's a lot of fun. So I want to talk about the top of the tower up here real quick, specifically with the flags. The flags are done a little differently this time around, in the sense that instead of plugging in to the gold little clips that came with the vintage one that you could clip around, you could stick the flags in it, and you could even stick some of the weapons in those gold clips. But this time around, we just have pegs at the bottom of the flags with peg holes at the top so that these plug in. And honestly, this works fine. It's actually very sturdy and they look really good. Another thing that I do really like about these is the fact that the flags themselves are now an actual cloth material on all the banners, the two banners and this flag, instead of just being stickers that you wrap around on the vintage playset. I think the actual cloth flags and banners work really well here. The other thing I have up here sitting on the platform, which by the way, yes, there's a full platform at the top, so you could stand figures up there. But I also have the red laser cannon positioned up there as well. That's where I always put it on my vintage one. This is modeled just like the vintage one. It's got the ability to kind of slide in and out so that you can adjust the position of where this is going to fire. There's a lot of stickers on here as well. We've got the cool little smoky windshield on the front, which is really nice because that's another piece that is very hard to get on the vintage toy. And I like the way they made it on here so it's actually not removable, so you won't lose it, hopefully. There's a little sticker underneath that there with a control panel, and they even added a rocket firing mechanism with this. So you've got little buttons on the sides, and when you press those buttons, it blasts the missiles off. And it actually works really well. It shoots good. The cat head scene on the front of Central Tower is very cool looking. I specifically love the way they did the eyes because these are like that bubble clear plastic where the details of the cat eye are inside of it. So it just looks really good, especially in person. The overall face is just molded in the same blue as the tower, but you'll notice that there's like this silver airbrushing on there that's really kind of subtle on the face itself, but it's really intense on the arms. The arms are almost like a very reflective, shiny silver as a result. Now, keen-eyed fans who might have had the vintage one might notice that the hands are positioned different because they are now down instead of facing each other. This is a change, but the action feature here still functions essentially the same. The way this would work is if you would stand any figure here in the front that you want to fall into this trap, you would spring it with this little lever that is off to the side. Now this time around, the lever is modeled to look like the little orb of power sitting in the pedestal, very similar to what we've seen with Castle Grayskull in the past. Pulling this lever towards you causes the hands to twist and pull the figure into the mouth of the cat on the central tower, essentially trapping the figure in place. It's a really fun effect. It's very fluid. It moves really well, and it's fun. It does almost look like they're just kind of getting a big hug from the central tower. But, you know, it's not too different from the vintage one, and the added swinging of the arms there is really cool. It works very, very well. Now, that's not the only trap you can spring right here in the front, because this drawbridge on the front here leading into the entrance can also trigger a trap. And you do this by pulling this little gargoyle right here towards you. When you pull that gargoyle, it springs the drawbridge upwards. Now, a couple different things can happen here. Like if the mouth is open, which you can actually clip it down, you can just spring the figure kind of right into the mouth. That works okay. It more kind of just like smashes the figure up against the mouth. Doesn't look as good. But if you've got the mouth closed and you position the figure kind of towards the front, you can actually get this to like flip the figure up into the air and maybe even get him to land into the moat underneath. And that is pretty fun. I like that quite a bit. So speaking of the moat, the overall base here is one of the big differences that really stands out to me, because on the original Eternia, the base was the same color blue as the rest of the playset. They've changed it to gray this time around, which has that same kind of silver airbrush on there that makes it a bit metallic and shiny. And it looks really cool, but if you're used to seeing the vintage one, this to me is where it stands out the most. I mean, that gray base really stands out. The inside of it is the same kind of turquoisey blue as the tower. And if you look at the bottom, you'll even see all of the molded on weapons. There's even some bones down there, very similar to the way it was molded on the vintage. I assume this is intended so that if you want to fill it with water and turn it into an actual moat, that is something you can do, just like with the vintage. This is also where I like to put the little stingray accessory that comes with this particular set. I always did that with the vintage. Or, you know, if you want to put Moaty the Moat monster underneath the drawbridge there, you could do that as well, because that's where he was molded on the vintage toy. The other gargoyle also has a fun little surprise. You can remove it to reveal a little sticker of a spider on a spider web, which is one of those details that comes straight from the vintage toy. Speaking of Moaty the Moat monster, in the spot that links to Grayskull Tower, which is the perfect place to put your little Moat monster figure. It's like they created a little doggy door for him, but it works really well. It's a great place to actually display him. And that brings us over here to Grayskull Tower, which essentially looks like it could be another tower of Castle Grayskull. It's colored very similar to Castle Grayskull. I will say it appears to be much more of the darker green colors of the vintage castle as opposed to the bright fluorescence of the Origins castle. I prefer that, but I don't know if that's going to bother anybody where they don't quite match up. This one here is kind of like a prison tower because we've got this gate right here that's supposed to trap prisoners. Now, this is an action feature that's supposed to trigger by the monorail, which we can play with a little bit more later. There's a real metal chain that links to this spiky ball right here. And the way this is intended to work is that if you lift it up, see, it opens that gate. And then you're supposed to kind of lean this chain across these pieces on the tower up here and then set the spike ball up on the monorail track, with the intent being that when the monorail rolls around, it bumps this off and it's supposed to make the door slam shut. It's real janky. It doesn't really seem to sit up there well. It doesn't work well, but I think that's because they mimicked a vintage action feature that also never worked too well. So if we're looking at the back side of Grayskull Tower here, we can see a bit more going on with the whole prison motif. This being kind of like a jail cell for, I don't know, villains, heroes, anybody that's trying to break in. Could be for whatever you want. And I showed you the opening cage on the front that's supposed to be triggered by the monorail, but we've got two more things going on here. First of all, there is a trap door on the top. There's a little grated area, and if a figure is climbing up the tower and they're trying to get to the top, you can actually push this little silver brick on the side of Grayskull Tower to open the trap door and knock the figure down into the dungeon. It's classic. It's classic MOTU. It's just like the dungeon great door in Castle Grayskull. But we can also break them out of prison because we do have this cool little skull and crossbones right here, which is supposed to trigger the opening of the back here. I will say, when I push this, the door doesn't open. I assume it's supposed to, oh, there, I got it to work. So I think that's what it's supposed to do, right? Because hey, it's opening much better now. This is great because it doesn't go every time. And there we go. So I was playing with it a lot before I started filming, and it was never opening. I always had to manually do it. So I'm glad that it actually started working. In order to close it, you have to just kind of move that back over to the side, lock it in place. See, it doesn't go every time. A little bit of work gets it to open up. And then, you know, you can get your figure to come out. They're free now. So there's lots of ways to get into this dungeon. We got that opening door on the front, an opening door on the back, a dropping in grate on the top. It's not a very secure prison. On the inside, there's like just some molded bars on the floor with some nondescript bubbly type substance there. But it's pretty fun. Central Tower is where there's going to be a lot more going on because there's 1, 2, 3, technically 4 levels of play if you count the top there that we already talked about. But inside the tower, there are 3 more levels. So let's go ahead and start by talking about the bottom down here. First of all, we've got this bridge piece here. Now this actually is something that comes from the vintage Eternia. They've got it so that it attaches right here on the back. It's kind of like this nice little ramp here. You can see here's the entryway from the front. There's just some stickers in here, some decoration. Actually, the stickers are kind of cool because they look sort of like bookcases with some fun things on top, like an owl statue, a crystal ball, a skull, a little treasure and a key, some maps, fun stuff there. And then you can see right here, we've got the lift, which is the elevator. There are some foot pegs here, and we got this little crank down at the bottom. And winding this crank will actually send the lift up to each of the different floors, which is pretty cool. So let's go ahead and just move on up to the second floor here. You can see we brought the lift up, and this is almost like a little technology area because in here, you can see that we've got a computer screen and a little chair so that somebody can sit here and monitor security at Eternia. That's essentially what we've got going on. The chair hangs from the ceiling. It can rotate. We've just got the little computer screen in there. So that is our second floor. Let's go ahead and wind this lift all the way up to the top. In fact, I'll probably just move the lift out of the way so we can look in here a little bit better, and I'll make sure I get good close-up shots too. But this is like our weapons room up here. So attached to the top of that chair from the bottom floor is something new. It's a Horde Trooper training dummy. How cool is this? Now, the Horde Trooper itself is non-articulated. It's a solid piece of plastic. It's very shiny, but just by using that chair that's underneath it, you can rotate it around, it spins, so, you know, figures can do some training. You'll notice this cage behind the Horde Trooper there. Now, this playset comes with many accessories, most of which are inspired from the vintage playset. So there's all kinds of fun weapons here. We've got all kinds of fun things like a weird little crossbow and an actual bow and arrow and a shield and one of my favorites, the sword laser. Lots of fun stuff going on here. Now, what's cool about these is a lot of them will have these little pegs on the back because they're while they can be used by the figures, they're also meant for decoration. And that's what this wall up here is for. You'll notice that there are peg holes kind of scattered throughout. So you can attach a lot of these weapons into these peg holes, which basically will decorate this wall up here, and it'll make it look a lot nicer. Now, like I said, you could use these for your figures if you want to. I imagine most of us are going to choose to use them as the decor up here because probably a lot of our characters are just going to be using the weapons that they came with. But it's pretty cool. It's neat that we've got a spot to store all of these weapons in a cool little weapons room. All right, so now let's talk about the monorail. We've got a couple different options for using the monorail, and it all needs this piece right here. So this is the actual motorized part that's going to make these vehicles go around the monorail tracks. You only get one of these, just like with the vintage toy. That means only one thing can actually go on the monorail at one time. Honestly, I kind of wish they would have sprung for two of these in this one, just to have like two things going at opposite ends of the track. I think that would have been really cool. But as it is, we only get this one piece. So this requires two AA batteries, which you'll need to put in here. There are stickers all over this. And the way this works is you'll attach it to the top of whichever one of these vehicles that you want to use. So I think the most common probably is the little shuttle right here, which, by the way, has a very New Adventures vibe to me. I think it's kind of clear you could see the direction everything was headed. So this is like a lightweight vehicle that you can attach the piece to. You can see it's got an opening blast shield. There's a bunch of stickers inside, control panels, lots of fun stuff like that. So if you want to, we can set a figure inside of here. Let's put He-Man in there. He-Man's gonna go inside of the little shuttlecraft right there. And in order to make this work, you will just attach this piece right there. It clips in place, so it hangs just like this. The next vehicle is this cage. It's kind of like a prison transport. It's kind of fun. So this is just a big purple cage. Again, there are stickers all over this, which is pretty fun. You've got an opening door here at the top. So here, let's put somebody in the cage. They gotta lay down in the cage, so it's probably pretty uncomfortable. So sorry, Trapjaw, you are in the cage there. And again, you're just gonna attach the monorail, the motorized piece, to the top of it, just like this. Now, there's an extra piece that goes with this, which is this weird little hooky thing that triggers a special action feature that I'm going to show you as well. This one I think is actually the funny one. I don't know why this is so funny to me, but this is like a little blaster thing that figures can lay down in. So if I want to put Skeletor on here, let's lay him down on it just like this. So this is basically how they would go, right? They're kind of like laying on this little blaster thing. And again, it's got a spot on the top so that you can clip this, and now Skeletor can just lay across the monorail blasting at people. Or whoever you want, of course. So the other thing we get for the monorail are these interesting little hooks. And this is another thing that comes straight off of the vintage toy. You get 4 of these, and these are meant to clip onto the figure's arms. They're pretty tight clips. There you go. Just got to get a little bit of work. You can get it on the figure's arm. But these are essentially made so that the figures can like hang on the monorail track if they want to. And this ladder piece is really cool also, and it's got these hooks on there. Technically, you can put this wherever you want, but it does hang off of the monorail track as well. Of course, it's going to get in the way if you want things rolling on the monorail track. That goes for the hanging guys too. If any of those guys are on the track, they're going to get run over by whatever vehicle you've got going around. Okay, you ready to see this monorail in action? Let's start with that little shuttle. We've got this piece attached to it. So the way this works is you're actually going to come underneath, and it rests right on top of the track. You just put the wheel down, and then there's an on-off switch right here. And here we go. Look at it! Oh my gosh, I can't even begin to describe how satisfying this is. And I imagine so many longtime Masters fans are going to feel the same way when you turn on your Eternia's monorail. It's like, this is the thing we've always wanted to see, right? So many of us didn't have this play set, or even if we did, those monorail tracks broke on the old one. It's hard to get them intact nowadays. And here we are with a brand new working Eternia monorail. Oh, it is so much fun. The motor's quiet too. It's quieter than the vintage one, which I really like. It's so cool to see how smoothly this thing operates. All right, let's send that prison cage around on the track. Now, I told you with this one, we've got this little extra piece, right? So this will clip on. This clips onto the underside of the track, just like this. You want this little piece sticking outwards. And watch this. Oh, it was perfect. It triggers it to open the door and drop the enemy out the bottom. And in this case, I perfectly dropped him down into the moat. I didn't even plan that. I'm just so glad it happened that way. And of course, here's our blaster then. And we can send Skeletor around. This is a lot more lightweight too. I feel like it moves a little faster and a little smoother. This one, I don't know why this one is funny to me. It's just weird seeing him like laying down like Superman flying around on the monorail. I'm gonna get you, He-Man! Yeah! All right, guys, it's comparison time. This might be the most ridiculous and most difficult comparison time I have ever had to set up. But on the left is the original Eternia playset, and on the right is the brand new MOTU Origins version of the same playset. Now, my table space was definitely not big enough to capture all of this the way it should be. I just didn't have a long enough table over here, so Grayskull Tower on the vintage should actually be connected right here. I had to kind of set it on the table slightly on the back. But I still think this gives you a really good look at what the original one looks like next to the brand new one over there. Like a lot of the things in Masters of the Universe Origins, the colors are a lot more vibrant on the new one. The blue is brighter. This could just be because of age too on the old one, but I definitely think it has a lot to do with the more vibrant plastic colors that they've been using in the Origins line. Grayskull Tower is considerably smaller than the new one because the new one, they really squared off the bottom of it to add all the new dungeon stuff, the cages on there. The original one still had the door that opened and closed, but did not have the traps and the cages on the back of it there. Serpent Tower is very similar, but again, it didn't have the snapping forward motion on the vintage one compared to the new one. And of course, I don't have my Eternia tracks on my vintage one. because they are broken. I cannot connect these anymore. But you can see that the blue is a much different color blue to what we're getting on the new one, which is very bright and very vibrant on the new one. The old one, it was like this kind of deep greenish, turquoisey, bluey. I don't even know what color that is. It's just a lot more subdued to the vibrant color that we've got on the new one there. But it's really interesting looking at these side by side. And I do think that the new one stands just a hair taller than the vintage one. I definitely think that the base is a lot bigger, deeper maybe. Grayskull Tower is one of the biggest differences, but holy cow, I can't believe 2 versions of this playset now exists. Well, there you go, my friends. That is the Masters of the Universe Origins Eternia playset. And I gotta say, when you set up like a battle scene, when you put it with Snake Mountain and Castle Grayskull, like this is epic, but this takes up a ton of space. However, the folks at Mattel did an incredible job with this playset. This is such a cool and fun toy, and like I said in the beginning, I just can't believe that this exists. Like, there is no way I thought there was ever a chance of getting a new Eternia playset, and here it is. The MOTU Origins line has just gone so far above the expectations that I had for it when that line started out. This is such a fun toy. Yes, it was expensive at $650. Yes, there were definite issues with the way it was packaged and delivered. Should have been handled a little bit better on that front. Aside from that, I don't feel like I have any major gripes about this. Maybe minor criticisms. Would have been cool to have 2 motorized pieces for the monorail and stuff like that, but otherwise, I am so happy with this. This is such a fun toy. At this point, it's just a matter of where the heck am I gonna put it, because it was already hard enough finding a spot for my vintage Eternia, and now I've got this as well. But as a longtime fan of this brand, especially of the original toy line, this is like a dream come true playset for so many people, especially if you never had the opportunity to get the original version. This is incredible. It's really well made. The action features are fun. That monorail alone is, mwah, I love it so much. I don't know. I love this thing. It's awesome. Now, like I said, this was like a crowdfund thing, so at this point, the only way to get it is to find it on the secondary market. I assume that means the prices will be very high, however, will still likely be cheaper than trying to get a complete vintage one, so definitely something to keep in mind if you want an Eternia in your collection. So how about you guys? What do you think? Did you pick up Eternia? Are you happy with it? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you guys so very much for always continuing to watch all of this content. So much Masters of the Universe, but I love it. All these years, I had no idea we would end up here with this. Until next time, my friends.